Are we locked in here with the horrors? Or are the horrors locked in here with us? Welcome back to RPG Horror Stories, where I go on Reddit so you don't have to! Another week, new horrors. It's rainy and gray outside, so inside we will stay. For those of you who do not know how this works, we are going to r/RPG Horror Stories, picking the top few from this week and reading them out for our schadenfreude pleasure. Then at the end of this, reading an RPG GloryStory just to cleanse our mind and refresh our faith in humanity. So stay tuned for that. There's a good one this week. So, without further ado, let's jump in. This first one is titled, Am I the Asshole for Building a Control Mage? I love Am I the Assholes on here because we actually get to decide if they're an asshole or not. I'm excited. Let's do it. Hello everyone. Very formal. Recently, a campaign ended, and I have mixed feelings about it. I'm trying to be better, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm entirely at fault, which is why I'm here asking if I'm the a-hole. Starting out, the system we were playing was Pathfinder 1st Edition, specifically the Spheres of Power version, which lets players kit out their characters with talents so martial types can do more than full attack charge on rounds, and casters have new spells to work with but makes them specialize over something like wizards and clerics who have a book of spells to pull from. To summarize, a level 5 character in Spheres usually has a lot of the same features level 10 to 12 characters would have via feats in regular Pathfinder, and it'd go from there. When the campaign started, the DM asked us to not build strong characters and focused on having fun since it'd be more exploration focused than combat. The whole party consisted of 3 melee DPS and 2 casting debuff supports, me being one of them. No one was playing tank or healer. 2 of us could do the healing out of combat, and 1 of us was good at restoring it across the party, but no one could out-heal the damage we'd normally take during fights. The DM ran combat like Pathfinder Society, where there'd usually be 3 to 4 consecutive encounters with no long rest in between. Combat always started with all the party members within 5 feet of each other. Bosses got to go first and had multiple turns in the initiative. A dragon with 1d4 breath recharge would get 2 rounds counted instead of 1. Likewise, if they were debuffed for X rounds, one of them counted as a round for them. God damn, there's so much jargon in the beginning of this one. I am so sorry. I mean, I like crunchy combat, but even then it's like, fuck. Mobs outnumbered us roughly 2 to 1, with 80 to 100 HP each, and enemies were usually in tactical positions against wherever we started while having AoE of attacks readies. People who did well on the initiative managed to get out of the splash zone usually, but otherwise everyone took unavoidable damage out the gate. By the end of most dungeons, we were alive with less than a quarter HP and no heals left. The whole campaign, we only got to loot enemies twice and received around 20,000 gold pieces by level 8 as well. Okay, just initially, first, like off the bat, OP sounds like the problem player. Like, off the bat. Just this campaign, he literally said it. Like, OP said it up earlier, that this campaign is supposed to be fun, not combat focused. Yet OP has overanalyzed the ever-living hell out of combat at this point in time. I would guess that the DM would be frustrated with him as well. As like, hey, this wasn't combat focused, but you seem to have built a combat character that only works well in combat and you overanalyze combat. Man, I'm just throwing monsters at you to see what sticks. This is an exploration campaign, but we'll see what happens. My character was an elf druid who focused more on nature magic using spells that would affect areas to debuff or immobilize enemies, while the animal companion summons would try soaking some of the damage and DPS members did their part. Other than that, my damage was 5d6 fireball to chip at the mobs and an air geyser that would yeet enemies straight up for fall damage on a failed save, 8d6. Unfortunately, the campaign devolved into an arms race from there. For example, I'd put out a spell like Pit that mobs would have to get out of or go around, and now most enemies had the ability to teleport, fly, climb, and burrow out of it. The most contentious spell was an animated tree that I could create anywhere in 200 feet, giving the ability to move and attack / debuff, which gave the party a tank. The best thing it did was the ability to taunt an enemy so hostiles' actions could only target it for a few rounds, while we could also opt to do no damage at all on hits, cause the enemy Oh my god. The best thing it did was the ability to taunt an enemy so hostile actions could only target it for a few rounds, while it could also opt to do no damage at all on hits, cause the enemy to be fatigued / exhausted until they spent a full round clearing the condition. Who cares? Okay. I may have lost a lot of viewers at this point in time. I promise you, stories aren't usually like this. This is like grating nails on a chalkboard to my ears right now. Like, this sucks to read, and I'll bet it sucks to listen. I'm gonna say it right now. Yeah, OP, you are the asshole. Skipping to the last session, we were fighting 2 dragons that also had spheres features. Dragon number 1 is a blaster caster, and dragon number 2 is a martial type who would lock you in place and perpetually knock you prone if you tried moving around it or missed an attack against it. Halfway through the combat, the DM locked me in a hurt box that I couldn't leave, and others couldn't get through on a corner of the map with the blaster dragon. Trying to survive, I managed to barely stay out of melee reach, grounded the dragon that had been flying until that point, held it in place, and put it in a situation where it had to pass a concentration check to try throwing more fireballs at me. In response, it somehow kept rolling 1s on its breath recharge time behind the DM screen and was hitting me twice with breath attacks every round after that. Seeing that happen, dragon number 2 flew into the hurt box, ignoring the tree that had taunted it until that point, and the rest of the party to double tap my already unconscious character so they actually died. Then, the round after that, both of the dragons died since they were constantly provoking attacks of opportunity from the rest of the party to get to me at that point. Alright, OP, you sound like an asshole. Your DM also sounds like an asshole. Yeah, that's not cool. DMs, give your players a chance. Also, don't single out a player unless it's narratively appropriate. I get it. DMs, we're also playing the game. We're also playing the game. People need to remember that it needs to be fun for us too. And I can get how it can be frustrating when your players are just they min-max the ever-living hell out of their character, and so they just wipe the board with you. But that doesn't mean you single them out. That's not cool. Don't do that. One of the players in the party told me that I made the fight less fun and interesting for them because of what I was doing. He also told me that I made things harder for the DM and him since they had to balance around my character. That player is the DM's boyfriend. So there could be some bias, but I still value their opinion enough to write a thread here and ask. So am I the asshole? I'm gonna say yeah. No, just seeing how OP wrote this entire thing and them saying off the rip that this was not a combat-based campaign and them building a combat character that would not only dominate the battlefield, but also make it not fun for everybody else because they're doing everything. Yeah, OP, you're the asshole. You are 100% the asshole. I'm surprised the frustrations didn't come out earlier, given everything you've explained so far. Granted, I don't think the frustrations were right, but I do think they're justified. Because you sound like a problem player. There are multiple different types of problem players. One of them is the min-maxer just because they can. They build a character so that they can be the main character. It's rather than having main character syndrome, it is setting yourself up to be the main character, Which is eternally frustrating for other players at the table and DMs alike. Because again, this was supposed to be a fun exploration-based campaign, which means that when combat showed up, it's a treat, Especially if you're using this system that gives your players essentially superpowers. They make them extremely overpowered at earlier levels, which sounds really fun, and I'm actually going to look into it. But that's just no fun for anybody at all. All right, off with a bang. On to the next. This next story is very short, and it is titled, "What are some of your worst stories about being booted?" I haven't been booted. I've done the booting. I was recently booted from a game/server, and I know everyone is already thinking, oh god, what did OP do? Or, oh god, what did the DM do? But it was actually a really clean situation. I had an odd schedule and was playing a quieter character, so my posts weren't too frequent or large, and the DM/other players felt like there's a lack of interest/effort, and the DM explained as much before booting and blocking me. Sure, I wish we could have talked about it, but the fact that I even got told, hey, you don't quite gel with this group, here's why, beforehand is already so much in a world where I've already woken up to messages asking if I knew where the heck the DM/server went because both just vanished into the aether. But it got me curious. What are some of your stories about not so clean bootings where you saw a DM get way too petty over kicking people or you dodged a bullet by getting kicked early? Interesting. That was very nice of the DM to say that. That's what you should do when you boot them. You need to give them explanations as to why, because it'll just drive them crazy. So I'm very glad the DM did this. But also, there are 96 comments under this post. Let's dive into the first few, shall we? I was invited after responding to a forum ad to play an always active play by post Discord server. Once my character was created and uploaded, I went to bed at 10 p.m. Get up the next morning, check in, only to find out I was ejected because I, quote, cannot just check in every 12 hours. So apparently I was supposed to eat, sleep, and play at the DM's will. I was so sickened because I was really excited at the notion of playing every few hours or so, but alas, here we are. Oh, no, fuck that. Absolutely not. Okay. I've never played in a play by post campaign, but guys, people gotta sleep. Don't get me wrong. I would love to eat, sleep, and breathe D&D, but that's not possible. Like, you gotta sleep, you gotta eat, you gotta work, you know? You get busy sometimes. You can't. That was stupid. One of my friends invited me to an online game. I entered the Discord and say hi and asked what the setting/game rules were. One of the rules was, quote, no evil. I say, sure. Do you mean no evil characters or no evil questionable acts? I got booted with a sorry if you have to ask, I don't want you. The fuck? I think both me and the DM considered the bullet dodged. I later found out from my friend that the DM wanted the party to basically be paladins with very black/white morality. I can understand a DM wanting to run an entirely lawful good campaign, you know, that sort of deal. But people are more complicated than black and white morality. You know, that's the best part about D&D is that morality is a spectrum like so many other things in this world. And so that's the best part is that these heroes are not wholly good. The best part is that heroes are corruptible. They are faultable. You know, they're not gods. They're not infallible. They can go about life and make the wrong choices, and they have to live with those mistakes. That's the best part about D&D. So I'd say OP on that one, dodged a bullet. For sure. I really only have one story about being booted from a game. There was this friend of a friend who wanted to try a life path character creation system for 3rd edition he had just bought. So we all got together in one night and created characters. Well, we were told it was just that. Then he was strong-arming us into joining a campaign because he said, why do all this just to create characters? I agreed to join because he was a good friend of my friend. Well, the red flag started quickly. He handed me my backstory, and he dropped some cultural stuff on us after we had created our characters that would have changed some of our choices if we had known about it. I began questioning several of these things as the game went along, and I missed the second session where he dropped an entire island on first level characters and killed them all, so it came back to the fray where everyone had all new characters. Well, apparently my questioning things got under his skin, so he booted me, which really wasn't a problem since it wasn't a game that I was all that eager to be in the first place. These comments are great. Take these as an example of what not to do as a DM, because these players so far, they're not bad. These are not bad players at all. The DMs, horrible. Absolutely god-awful. Again, DMs, give your players a chance. DMs during session 0, lay all the cards on the table when it comes to cultural significance of things in worlds and things like that. Just be open and honest. Granted, don't give the plot away. I'm not saying that, so don't come for me. I'm saying, if there is a serf system inside a town and certain species are below or above other species, or there's a power dynamic or something like that, they would know about that before they created their character. You know, let's do one more. I was once booted from a server just because I called out a DM on their behavior. He then had posted this long thing about me in his Discord saying I was a horrible person. That post made other people think he was the horrible person instead, and they left the game. That's awesome. Hell yeah, I love it when people turn around. Everyone leaving made the guy quit DMing. At least that's what I was told. Another time I was booted because I didn't show the DM pictures of myself. I firmly believe I dodged a bullet there. Yes, you did. Edit, clarification that everyone on the Discord saw the DM to be a bad person because they were speaking poorly of me. That's a dodge bullet 2 times right there. That's like a pew, pew, you know, that sort of deal. Y'all, when it comes to D&D and situations like that, and in a majority of other situations, don't let people take advantage of you. Please don't. I know it's hard. I know it's real hard, but you gotta try and avoid it as much as possible because in all actuality, they don't have any power over you. you know, especially if it's a DM. You know, they hold your character in the palm of their hands or something like that. Don't let them take advantage of you. They're just dweebs that can't get anything done themselves. So, they're trying to manipulate you. Don't let that happen. All right, this one was interesting. On to the next. This one is titled, "No, you cannot blow a hole in the ship and kill the entire party." Hell of a quote. Let's see where it leads to. A few weeks ago, I decided to run a D&D campaign based on the Mass Effect universe. I made stats for all the races, rules for tech and biotics, Mass Effect's version of space magic, and a few weapons from all 8 Mass Effect's weapon categories. I was pretty proud of all the homebrew I'd managed to make for this campaign, and was eager to find some players to enjoy it. I made a couple of posts on LFG forums to advertise the campaign, and got a decent number of responses. Eventually, I settled on 5 players, one of which I probably should have booted during character creation. This is an awesome concept so far. I'm just throwing that out there. This is an amazing concept. Again, base your D&D campaigns off of anything. Literally anything. Don't listen to other people and it's like, no, you gotta use the source materials, or, oh man, it's not fantasy. No, D&D is malleable. Extremely malleable. So, don't be afraid to do this. Don't be afraid to go the extra mile like this DM did. Let's see what happens. His first character idea was to play a Reaper. A literal Reaper. You know, the 2-kilometer living starships that can 1v1 entire fleets without taking damage. Whoa. I'm not familiar with the Mass Effect system, but I can see a few problems arising if somebody were to play a planet-sized creature inside a D&D campaign. Problems might arise. His argument was that by essentially being the party's ship, they'd save money on repairs and stuff. His second idea was to play Commander Shepard, the literal main character of the games, who is dead by the time this campaign starts, as it's post-Mass Effect 3. God. Alright, so DM, listen. I've got the idea, right, for the character. I want to play as a Reaper. The ship. What do you mean play as the ship? You know, I'd play as the ship. You know, they could ride around inside of me. We'd save money on repairs and stuff like that. We could just heal me up. It'll be great. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to do that. No, you're definitely not going to do that. That's ridiculous. Like, you need to be a character. That would be so overpowered. You know what? You're right. I can't, like, size dynamics, that sort of deal. I couldn't logistically go on side a planet or something like that. So instead, I'm gonna play this guy, human, good looking, super powerful, probably had 3 story arcs about him so far, and this is him jumping into his 4th, and just kind of a commander in the fleet. You can't play as Commander Shepard. Why not? That sort of shit. He went through a few more blatantly overpowered character concepts before I finally talked him down to playing a Turian fighter. His backstory for this character was 2 whole sentences. He's a former soldier who worships stars. He wants to find a home. Easy and to the point. Sure, why not? Seeing as how he had extremely overpowered concepts, I don't believe that's the full story. Let's see what happens. Eventually, we come to session 0. The players all meet each other, some background information is exchanged, rules are discussed, etc., etc. I noticed that Turian was practically silent during the whole thing. His mic wasn't muted. I checked a few times during the session. He just wasn't engaging with anyone. Okay, well, a lot of people are quiet when they first meet new people. That's normal enough, I naively thought. Eventually, we reach game night. I give the opening narration explaining that it'll be 3 days until they reach the nearest mast relay, and ask each player in turn to describe their character and tell us what they do during these few days of travel time. When I reach Turian, he doesn't bother describing his character. Instead, he simply says he wants to detonate a grenade and blow a hole in the side of the starship. His reason? He worships space, so he wants to be outside. Boys, we got another one. It's what my character would do. Shut the fuck up. Oh my god. I worship the stars and I want to be outside. Come on. He's throwing a hissy fit like a 3-year-old because the DM wouldn't let him be the most overpowered character in the entire universe. Hopefully he gets kicked out, because that's a red flag. Obviously, I tell him no, he can't willingly destroy their ship since it would kill the entire party and end the campaign right away. He tries to argue, saying that a good DM would find a way to make it work and that I shouldn't say no. Only yes and. Alright. evil tip of the day. I haven't done one of these in a while, right? If a player wants to throw a hissy fit like this and, try to use the combative strategy of you shouldn't say no, only yes and. This is improv, after all. You hit them back with the counter of, let's take this one for an example. Hey DM, I want to detonate a grenade and blow up the ship. Oh, you want to detonate a grenade and blow a hole in the ship. Okay, cool. So you set the charge for the grenade and set it to blow up. You didn't realize that the fuse was shorter than you thought, and you blows up and you take... Ooh, that's 45 damage. Sorry. My character only has 20 HP. Guess you should have thought of that before blowing up the ship. Something like that. Evil tip of the day. When I refused to budge, he just told me to go F myself and left the server. Good. Get him out of there. The remaining 4 players agreed to keep playing without him. And we had a pretty fun session in the party exploring an abandoned colony full of hostile unknown aliens. After the session, I found out that Turian had been messaging another player. The only woman in the party trying to... Why do these stories always have this caveat at the end where there's a problem player and then it turns out they're also texting the woman in the party trying to fetishize her or get her to send pictures or something like that, trying to convince her to send him pictures of herself. She never did, and even blocked him when he started to get aggressive with his messages. Always nice when the trash takes itself out, I suppose. Damn straight. Sometimes the trash just takes care of itself. Gotta be grateful for those moments. DMs, if you're seeing the red flags pop up in session 0, players, if you're seeing the red flags pop up with the DM in session 0, it's not applying here, but I'm just saying it. Vice versa. Get out of there, find another table. There's another table out there. You just gotta look for it. You got to put in the legwork, but playing D&D is way more accessible than you think it is nowadays. But, god damn, why is it always that? All right, interesting. On to the next. All right, so those were some beautiful horror stories. Now, to regain some faith in humanity, we are going to read an RPG GloryStory. For those that do not know, a GloryStory is the opposite of a horror story. It's where things go extremely right. Things go wrong, but in a funny way that's not at the expense of others. A funny thing happens, not at the expense of others. You see how I'm repeating the phrase, not at the expense of others? That's very important here. Or, some things just work out in real life that you would never expect it to. This one is titled, My Daughter is Blind, but I Want to Get Her into D&D. That's very sweet. And I can't wait to see how OP does. She has the best imagination, but she has been against actually rolling dice. What's the best way to get her involved in it? Sorry if this is fairly vague. I've played the game on and off for decades. Some relevant comments were, bump, pip, dice. Are there Braille-like analog for dice faces? I just like the feel of the shape in my head as is. Maybe I'm just autistic like that, but maybe an app that rolls and announces the results audibly? An imagination is the biggest piece. Dice aren't even really needed to tell an excellent story together. OOP replied, she's amazing on tactile stuff and theater of the mind, so I probably should make her be able to roll and feel it, etc. Use a voice assistant like Google Assistant or Alexa. Hey Google, roll 6d10. That's a great idea. She loves asking, I can't say that name because she's listening to me right now. Ask her for songs, so I might do it for dice. Everyone has had great suggestions. Those are great suggestions, and I find it so honorable that a dad is trying to get his daughter involved in a hobby of his because he notices her great imagination, which, you can have all the acting and math skills you want, but imagination is the biggest part of D&D in my opinion. And it's just tapping into that kid-like brain that you have. And so the fact that he wants to get her involved in something that he loves and he's trying to adjust it and find ways to let her do it, even though she doesn't have eyesight, this is beautiful. And the best part is we have an update. This update is from August 14th of 2022. That first one, by the way, was from July 31st of 2022. So this one is about 2 weeks later. So my daughter is 10 and blind, and she loves theater of the mind, period. I had the starter set already. I'd read over Minds of Philandir. Fandelver. Oh my god. That is the first time I've actually read that word. You know how you gloss over words? And you're like, okay, that's kind of what it is, but you never actually decide to read it. I've literally read the module, and I've never actually read the word. Okay, so I had the starter set already. I'd read over Minds of Philandelver over and over again, and also I'd watch a ton of YouTube videos about how to run games for kids. I simplified everything into being able to pick 4 basic races: human, elf, dwarf, gnome, and classes fighter, ranger, sorcerer, druid. She immediately picked human druid and knew what she wanted to do with her character. It was very surprising because I thought I would have to guide her through things or prod her in certain direction. Nope. She just kept going hard on how she used to be a villager and her dad was a ranger and her mom was a witch, but she spent most of her time in the forest. She could speak with animals, especially birds and monkeys, then dragons, goblins, orcs, and orangutans, quote, apparently evil. Yo, add that lore in there. Add that lore in there. In this forest, the orangutans are the evil ruling elite class, you know? I love that. I love her imagination. Attacked their village in the enchanted forest. She had to escape that enchanted forest and was lost for a long time until she found another enchanted forest by following her robin friend that she could speak with. She was taken in by a kingdom inside of the middle of another enchanted forest, and then finding her human magic user said she would be the princess of that land because the king and queen couldn't have their own child. But she's stuck between a rock and a hard place because they now, 2 years later, want her to marry a prince from another kingdom. But alas, she's just 16 and wants to do her own thing. She has been spending most of her time in the woods working on her own abode. This imagination is so cool. I love this backstory so far. I'm very glad the dad did this, and I'm so excited to see how she enjoys it, because she seems to enjoy the ever-living hell out of it right now. Let's see where it goes. Robin came and told her about another individual that was being attacked by giant raccoons, though, and she came to rescue her new friend. The new friend is my current girlfriend, who is an elf ranger that has been lost in these woods for months, but has good berries and create water. Anyway, she came and cast her minor illusion and charm animals to save, quote, Bones, the mountain elf ranger. And utilizing it as a bonding moment for this new person in your daughter's life that you would really like her to get her to like, and not pushing it, but just giving it an opportunity for cooperation. That's beautiful too. That's amazing. Don't judge, but her name is Fancy Skydiver, but she just goes by Skydiver. Oh, and she has a dog with a unicorn horn that can turn into a real unicorn with an invisible magical saddle and carry her to things and go anywhere. It sort of reminded me of Cat Bus from Totoro. Anyways, the Unipup is what we've been calling it and can only do it for short spurts. Why not? That's beautiful. Like, if it's not taking away from the story and it's just adding to it, absolutely throw fun things in there. Especially if this is like you introducing a kid to it. You don't need to get crunchy with the rules. You know, rule of cool. I operate by rule of cool a lot. I love that. After rescuing her beat-up friend, she brought her back into her own little house in the woods. A grizzly dwarf named Grumthor, the captain of the guard of the kingdom, came looking for her. She was still confused and annoyed, but it had been 2 days since they had been home. They had a small conversation, but she ultimately sent him back to the king and queen to say that there was no way she's getting married and she still needs to figure out what she wants to do. Grumthor returned back to the court in front of the king and queen. She voiced the queen and half the NPCs at this point, which I found amusing, and basically stated she's not coming back. The queen rode back with her guard, and Grumthor and her 2 dwarf axemen, Ronaldo and Donitio. Princess Fancy had a penchant for healing everyone, though she knew she only had a limited amount of spells a day. Donito and Ronaldo were both injured because there have been goblin and wolf attacks all along the way, but she still used all her magic to save both of them. This makes me so happy, because I truly feel that the way a person plays D&D and how they create their character and everything like that really says a lot about a person and their psyche. It's projecting, you know, it's a subconscious thing we all do. And hearing that this girl, who I don't know if when she lost her eyesight or if she's always been blind, you know, but all she wants to do is live a peaceful life and take care of people. She wants to heal people. And best of all, she's like voicing all the NPCs and creating all this crazy backstory and things like that. This is an excellent opportunity for her to really show off her imagination, and I'm very grateful that the dad did this. I think I'm missing some parts, but I just found it amusing, and this will probably help me remember our next session. Goblins riding wolves are on their way, and the dwarves are guarding outside, while Fancy and Bones are inside with the queen. So yeah, all that planning with LMOP, Lost Minds of Fandelver. Lost Minds of Fandelver. Yeah, anyways, it ended up great. I had her roll 20s and stuff and just told her what it was. And she just laughed and explained what she did, etc. Hopefully someone else got a kick out of this. I'm still beaming. I'm so proud of you, OOP. I'm so proud of you because you went the extra mile. In the last couple videos, we went over D&D Grandma Edition, right? Where somebody was introducing their 99-year-old grandmother into D&D. And it was a beautiful experience, and OOP went the extra mile to make sure that the grandma felt seen, heard, respected, and everything was overly accessible for her. And the grandma loved it. And it was beautiful. And I'm sure your daughter appreciates it so much. The fact that you're opening her up to new experiences that she probably wouldn't have gotten the time to do it, you know? This is beautiful. What are some relevant comments? That sounds like an absolute joy. It's very heartwarming to hear how creatively involved your daughter is. She seems very bright and you sound like an excellent father and DM. OOP replied, I've played a lot of D&D and this is my most fun session. It was hard to navigate for me because I wanted to put in more of the rules, but I just stopped trying to control it after about 20 minutes. I'm sure most DMs wish they had players just going on full-blown stories about what they're doing. I'm just hoping she's still interested in what happens next. I'm sure she is. That's the thing with D&D is, if people are having fun, it's a good game. Doesn't really matter what the rules are at that point in time. If people are having fun, it's a good game. I played at a convention with a blind DM. He had an electric braille reading machine, and he was a blast to play with. It was an official D&D event too. Give it a few years, and she will be DMing for you or her friends. OOP replied, God, I hope so. She's already taken over half the NPCs. We always went on, quote, adventures when she was young, which was just walking around pretending. I hope this awakens something in her, and she finds a passion, and she rolls with it. And I hope that we see her. This was in 2022. I hope we see her down the line in, let's say, 12 years, DMing at an official D&D event. That's my hope. Doesn't that just warm your little heart? God, we had some good stories today. Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments down below which of these stories was your favorite, or least favorite, depending on how you look at it. That kind of helps me get the videos out there and help me grow this channel. If you could please share this video around and share this channel around, because I would love to grow this into a community where we could all bask in our joy and love of TTRPGs and everything nerdy. That would be greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this, please check out the other videos on my channel. I've got so many other Reddit videos that you can check out. If you want to check out that D&D Grandma Edition, the ending of it is in the previous week's Reddit video, and the beginning of it's at the week before that. I ran out of time for filming, so I had to split it up. Be on the lookout for more videos in the future, but until that time, I will say, Auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, and I will catch you in the next one.